The gym wasn't really a gym, not in the way most people would recognize it. No air conditioning, no fancy equipment, just an old peeling warehouse tucked between two crumbling buildings in the outskirts of Salvador. The floor was cracked concrete, the roof let in rain on bad days, and the lighting buzzed with the dying whine of forgotten fixtures. But to Ayla, it was home. It was sacred ground. Every morning before the sun could burn away the shadows, Ayla was there. She'd arrive in silence, slipping through the loose panel in the side wall that served as a door. Her shoes were old and too big, her socks mismatched, and the oversized t-shirt hung from her shoulders like it belonged to someone else. But the way she moved was precise, deliberate. Every step into the gym was like stepping into the ring itself. She wasn't a child anymore when she was here. She was a fighter. The gloves she wore were a story in themselves, leather but cracked, the padding thin, fingers pushing through ragged seams like roots breaking out of dry soil. She wrapped her hands with care, ritualistically, tucking the tape just so, as though each pass was a prayer. Her fingers bore small scars, her knuckles darker than the rest of her skin, hardened by repetition and resolve. No one gave her new gloves. She wouldn't ask. She never asked. The heavy bag swayed on a rusted chain that creaked with every impact. Each punch she threw was a beat, a rhythm that only she could hear. Pop, 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 pop. Her breathing was controlled, sharp through the nose, out through clenched teeth. Her eyes never left the bag, focused, hungry, unforgiving. She trained like the world owed her something, and she was collecting, one jab at a time. In a corner of the gym sat a man in his 40s, arms folded, eyes narrowed. Tico, ex-fighter, ex-everything. He ran the gym like he had nothing to prove and nothing to lose, which was mostly true. Years ago he had tried to go pro, gotten close, then broken. Body, contract, spirit. Now he ran this space for the kids no one wanted to see succeed. He saw too many come and go, but Ayla? She was different. Not just because she had talent, lots of kids had talent. Ayla had something else, that look. The one that said, I'm not fighting for sport. I'm fighting because this is the only thing that makes sense in a world that doesn't. She rarely spoke. Even among the other kids, she kept to herself. During sparring, she moved with a controlled aggression that scared some of the older boys. She didn't smile when she landed a punch. She didn't celebrate when she won, she just kept going. Like winning was part of some larger debt she was slowly paying off. Home was a 2-room apartment 10 blocks from the gym. She lived with her grandmother, Donna Lucy, a proud, weathered woman with strong hands and a voice like sandpaper dipped in honey. Lucy had cleaned houses her entire life. Raised Ayla since her daughter, Ayla's mother, had died giving birth. The father was never in the picture, not even a photograph. Lucy never spoke of him. Ayla never asked. Their home was small, always a little too hot or too cold, depending on the day. But it was clean. The only luxury was an old radio, usually playing samba classics or gospel, depending on Lucy's mood. Ayla did her schoolwork at a wobbly kitchen table. Sometimes, she helped Lucy fold laundry from the neighbors for extra money. Most of the time, though, her mind was in the ring. That was where she felt most alive, most herself. The tournament was small, regional, unofficial, but for Ayla, it might as well have been the Olympics. She was matched against a girl 2 years older, taller by a head, and built like she'd been training in a proper gym with a real coach. The crowd was sparse, mostly family and friends of the fighters, but loud in that particular way that only underdog tournaments in poor neighborhoods can be. Raw, tense, electric. Tico gave her minimal instructions before the fight. He never overcoached. Use your eyes. Use your feet. Don't let her set the pace, he said. Then, looking down at her gloves, he added, and maybe break that girl's rhythm before she breaks those gloves in half. The bell rang. Ayla stepped forward like it was just another day at the gym. The other girl came out aggressive, throwing heavy punches early. Ayla didn't panic. She moved, slipped, ducked, took a few hits, sure, but never the same one twice. Her counters were sharp, precise, aimed not just to hurt, but to make her opponent think twice. She used angles, feints, timing, everything she'd learned through instinct, observation, necessity. The crowd started to shift. Murmurs turned into cheers. They saw it too. This wasn't luck. This girl was real. By the final round, the taller girl was breathing heavy, swinging wider. Ayla was still calm, still calculating. She ended the fight with a crisp combination, jab, uppercut, hook, that landed clean. The bell rang. The ref lifted Ayla's hand. She didn't smile, just nodded and stepped away. But someone in the crowd had been filming. The video, grainy and shot from a shaky phone, went online that night. The caption was simple: "Girl with torn gloves wins in Bahia." Something about it resonated. Maybe it was the contrast, those broken gloves, that focused face. Maybe it was the way she moved, like someone who didn't know how to quit. Or maybe people were just desperate to see something, someone authentic. The video spread, hundreds of thousands of views, shares across boxing forums, sports pages, even Reddit threads, comments in Portuguese, English, Tagalog. Who is she? This girl's got fire. Reminds me of a young Pacquiao. And in a quiet room half a world away, in a house near Manila, a man clicked play, watched, paused, rewound, watched again. His eyes narrowed, not with skepticism, but recognition. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, hands clasped tight. He'd seen champions, fought them, trained them. But something in this girl's eyes, those gloves, pulled at something he hadn't felt in years. Manny Pacquiao smiled. And Ayla? She was back in the gym the next morning. Gloves torn, sweat pouring. No idea the world had seen her. No idea it was about to change. Manila moved to its own rhythm, one of sweat, horns and hustlers, where sunlight glared off rusted rooftops and streets echoed with the chaos of a city forever balancing on the edge of motion. In a modest compound tucked into the quieter part of Quezon City, away from the roar of downtown, Manny Pacquiao sat in his home gym, shadowboxing in front of a mirror. He was older now. His punches weren't slower, but they came with less urgency, more thought. Retirement hadn't softened him. It had simply sharpened his gaze. The video had been forwarded to him by a friend, a former coach now running clinics in South America. The message was brief. "You'll want to see this." At first, Manny nearly skipped it. He got sent dozens of these every month. Young fighters with raw talent and big dreams. Most were good. None stopped him. But something about this one did. The moment he clicked play, he noticed the girl's gloves, torn open like the hands inside had punched through them in frustration or force. Then her eyes, cold, calm, focused like a veteran. She wasn't swinging wild. She was fighting with rhythm, restraint, as if each blow was part of a larger song only she could hear. He watched the whole match, then again, then a third time. He didn't need more proof. He stood up, walked into the house, and called for Rafael, his longtime assistant. "Find her," Manny said. "The girl from Bahia." Rafael raised an eyebrow but didn't ask questions. When Manny used that tone, he never meant maybe. He meant now. Back in Salvador, Ayla's life hadn't changed. She didn't have social media, didn't know the video had gone viral. Tico mentioned something about a lot of people asking about her online, but she shrugged it off. Every morning she trained like nothing had happened. Every night she walked home, ate what Lucy prepared, did her schoolwork by dim light. The gloves were still torn, she still wore them. A week after the video took off, a man arrived at the gym. He was quiet, dressed in simple clothes, but with the kind of posture that suggested he was used to important places. He watched Ayla train for an hour without saying a word, just stood by the wall, arms crossed. Tico eventually walked over. "You lost?" he asked. "No," the man replied in fluent Portuguese. "I'm here for her." He introduced himself as Rafael, showed his credentials, explained where he worked and for whom. Tico didn't believe it at first. "Pacquiao? The Pacquiao?" Rafael nodded. He saw her. He wants to help. They called Ayla over. She listened in silence as Rafael explained what Manny had in mind. A chance to train in Manila, in Pacquiao's private gym. Not a publicity stunt, not a reality show, a real opportunity. 3 months, all expenses covered, no strings attached. "But why me?" she asked finally. "Because he sees something in you," Rafael said. something rare. She didn't answer right away. Her eyes flicked to Tico, who looked as stunned as she felt, then to her gloves. Then, almost as if speaking to herself, she muttered, "I'm nobody." "No," Raphael said softly. "You're someone. You just haven't been seen before." The news hit Lucy like a storm. At first, she thought it was a scam. Then she cried. Then she argued. How could she let Ayla go across the world alone? What if something happened? But Ayla wasn't asking for permission. She was telling her truth. "If I don't try," she said, "I'll always wonder." Lucy sighed, held her face and said, "Then go, but don't forget where you came from." The flight was long, filled with noise and uncertainty. Ayla sat by the window, the gloves in her lap like a talisman. She barely slept. Each time she closed her eyes, she saw punches, footwork, shadows of fights that hadn't happened yet. She landed in Manila in a different world, hotter, louder, and 10 times more confusing than Salvador, but she walked off the plane with the same look she had in the ring. Raphael greeted her at the airport and took her straight to the Pacquiao residence. Manny himself was waiting in the gym. No cameras, no reporters, just him, wrapped hands, a towel over his shoulder. He smiled when he saw her. "So," he said in English slowly, "you are Ayla." She nodded. "You fight good." "Thanks," she replied in broken English. "You want to fight better?" She nodded again, this time without hesitation. "Then we work." The next 3 months became a crucible. The training was brutal. Mornings began before dawn, warm-ups that felt like marathons, routines that broke even seasoned fighters. Ayla struggled, especially with the language barrier. The other kids in the program came from all over Asia, Thailand, Korea, Indonesia. Some looked at her like an outsider. Some didn't look at her at all. But she never complained, never backed down. She learned by watching, mimicked movements, memorized drills. She sparred hard, lost often, bled more than once. But each time she got back up, a little faster, a little smarter. Manny kept his distance at first, let the head trainers handle her, but he watched every session, took notes. After 2 weeks, he called her in for a private session. "You don't know your power yet," he told her. She frowned. "You fight with your head. That's good. But when it's hard, when your mind says no, you need something more." He tapped her chest. "Here." From then on, he trained her personally twice a week. He didn't just teach her to punch. He taught her how to breathe, how to wait. He showed her how to feel the fight like music, to know when to lead and when to let the other person fall into your rhythm. He told stories about his own rise, the fights he lost, the people who doubted him. "Everybody sees my wins now," he said, "but I remember when I was barefoot, when I had no gloves." Ayla listened, absorbed, every word, every lesson. She began to change. Her footwork sharpened. Her defense became instinct. Her offense grew unpredictable. But most of all, she developed something else, presence. She didn't just fight anymore. She owned the space around her. One evening, after a particularly grueling sparring session where she dropped a taller boy with a liver shot, Manny made an announcement. "I am entering her in the International Youth Invitational," he said. "She will represent my team." The room fell silent. It was one of the most prestigious youth tournaments in Asia, with scouts from all over the world attending. Ayla blinked. "Me?" "Yes," Manny said. "It's time the world saw what I see." She trained harder than ever. For the next 4 weeks, every second was accounted for. She ran before sunrise, sparred twice a day, reviewed film at night. She missed home, but she didn't let it show. Lucy called sometimes. Tico sent short messages like, "Kill them with grace." She kept her gloves nearby, though she didn't wear them anymore. Manny had given her a new pair. Black leather, embossed with gold initials, AD, but she couldn't let go of the old ones. When the day of the tournament arrived, Ayla walked into the arena wearing her new team's jacket, the Pacquiao crest shining on the back. Reporters pointed, cameras flashed. She didn't flinch. Her first fights were clinical. She dismantled each opponent with precision. No wasted motion, no unnecessary flair. By the semi-finals, commentators were calling her the girl with steel eyes, but Manny knew better. "She fights like someone who remembers," he said. The final match was set. Ayla versus Jasmine Cole, a brash, undefeated American with speed and power. The hype was electric. Everyone expected Jasmine to dominate. Ayla didn't care. She stepped into the ring calm, collected. The bell rang. Jasmine came in fast, like lightning. Ayla absorbed, deflected, waited. Round after round she wore her down, not with brute force but with intelligence, with presence. In the final round, Jasmine landed a hard hook that staggered Ayla. For a split second, the crowd gasped. But Ayla recovered, steadied her breath, remembered the voice. "When your body fails, fight with your heart." She surged. Combinations flowed like music. Her gloves moved like instruments. Jasmine faltered. Ayla struck clean, once, twice, then a final right cross that sealed the deal. The bell rang. The judges didn't hesitate. Unanimous decision. Ayla Dantas, champion. As the ref raised her hand, she didn't smile. She didn't cry. She reached into her duffel and pulled out the old gloves, torn, faded, sacred, and she held them high. The lights had barely cooled in the arena when the messages began flooding in. Brands, journalists, foundations, recruiters. Overnight, Ayla's name stopped being just a whisper in the underground boxing world. She became something else entirely. A symbol. A girl from a forgotten corner of Brazil with torn gloves and volcanic discipline had just stunned the international youth boxing stage. But for Ayla, the title, the spotlight, the sudden attention, they all felt strange, surreal, almost irrelevant. What had changed, really? She was still Ayla. Still the same girl who fought like she had no choice. Still the same soul who learned to strike before she could speak a second language. Still the fighter who wore pain like armor and purpose like fire. Manny Pacquiao walked beside her as they left the arena that night. No cameras followed them. He'd made sure of that. He looked at her as a father might, not with pride alone, but with concern. He saw the weight settling into her shoulders, even under the glow of victory. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "You don't look like someone who just won everything." "I didn't come here to win," she said. "I came here to learn." "And I did." He smiled softly at that. "You remind me of me," he said. They stopped on the edge of the training compound, where the moonlight hit the track just right. Manny pulled something from his pocket, an old medal, bronze and scratched, hanging from a weathered ribbon. "First one I ever won," he said. "Not worth much, no money, no crowd, but I never let go of it, because it wasn't about the medal. It was proof I survived." Ayla took it in her hands, fingers tracing the edges. "What do I do now?" "Now?" he said, chuckling. "Now you choose what kind of fighter you want to be, a champion, or something bigger." Back at the compound, Ayla couldn't sleep. Her phone buzzed non-stop, with messages translated from languages she didn't recognize. Offers, contracts, news clips. One headline in particular stayed with her. "The fighter with nothing who fought like she had everything." But they didn't know the truth. She hadn't had nothing. She'd had her grandmother. Tico, the gym with the leaking roof, the rhythm of the bag, the ritual of wrapping broken hands in torn gloves. She'd had exactly what she needed, and that thought made her reach into her duffel bag again. The gloves were there, still torn, still dirty, still holding the sweat and silence of every morning she'd ever bled into them. She pressed them to her forehead and breathed in. Then she called Lucy. It was late in Brazil, but Lucy answered on the first ring. Ayla didn't say much, just, "I did it." And from the other side of the world, a grandmother's quiet tears filled the silence with something heavier than any gold belt could hold. The next day, a press conference was arranged. Manny was offered the spotlight, but he refused. "This is her story," he said. "Let her speak it." Ayla sat behind the table, flanked by interpreters and managers, her gold medal tucked beneath her jacket. The reporters bombarded her with questions. What did she eat before the fight? How did she feel? What would she do next? Did she plan to stay with Pacquiao's camp, Had she signed a sponsorship deal? She listened, waited, then leaned forward. "I don't fight for cameras," she said. "I fight for girls who think no one sees them." There was a pause, then applause. It wasn't loud, but it was real. In the weeks that followed, Ayla was offered everything she never asked for. Endorsements, trips, interviews, scholarships, even offers from American and European training camps. But her answer was always the same. "I'll think about it." Because something else had begun growing in her heart. Not ambition, not even pride, responsibility. She saw it when she scrolled through her messages, dozens of videos from girls all over Brazil, punching bags, old mattresses, the air. Some wore gloves, some didn't. One video stood out, a girl no older than 10, shadowboxing barefoot in a favela alley, her feet dancing around broken bottles and hope. That was when Ayla knew. She returned to Brazil 2 weeks later, not with a title, but with a mission. The reception in Salvador was overwhelming. The gym where she used to train, Tico's old broken warehouse, was now buzzing with energy. Kids lined up outside, reporters circled. Tico looked 10 years younger. He hugged her when she walked in, trying and failing to look tough. "You changed the game, Menina," he whispered. "I'm not done yet," she said. Using part of her prize money, Ayla helped renovate the gym. New bags, better flooring, real lighting, gloves for everyone. But she didn't stop there. She started her own youth program, focused specifically on young girls. She called it Luvas Fortes, strong gloves. She spoke at schools, held workshops, partnered with local women who taught yoga, nutrition, self-defense. Her program wasn't about building fighters for fame. It was about building fighters for life. Girls learned how to stand up, not just in a ring, but in classrooms, in homes, in systems designed to overlook them. One day during training, a reporter visited. He asked Ayla if she still fought competitively. "Always," she said. "But you haven't fought in a ring since Manila," he pointed out. She glanced at the dozens of girls behind her, skipping ropes and shadowboxing in rhythm. "You think this isn't a ring?" Her gloves, those torn, iconic ones, were now framed on the gym wall. Not behind glass, but pinned with cloth, raw and visible. Below them was a plaque with a quote she'd chosen herself. "Your tools don't make you a fighter. Your reason does." Manny came to visit once, quietly. No press. He sat in the back of the gym while Ayla coached, watched the way the girls listened to her, respected her. He pulled her aside afterward. "I saw what I hoped I'd see," he said. She smiled. "Thank you for seeing me first." He looked at the gloves on the wall. "You gonna let them rest?" "Never," she said. "They're still fighting." Years passed. Ayla continued to train. Sometimes she competed, regional, national, but only when it made sense. She refused to be consumed by the sport. She was more than that now, a mentor, a force, an origin story for dozens, maybe hundreds of new fighters. She wasn't famous in the traditional sense, but her name was carved into the memory of every girl who ever thought she needed perfect conditions to dream. She proved that greatness doesn't come with sponsorships or stadiums. Sometimes it comes with calloused hands, cracked leather, and a refusal to give up, even when no one is watching. And long after her name stopped trending, long after the headlines faded, the gym still rang with rhythm, pop, 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 and the story still lived, passed down in whispers, retold between rounds, taught with every taped wrist. The girl with torn gloves, the girl Manny Pacquiao saw, the girl who made the unbelievable real.